Entry hazards, a key element in Smogon's 6-on-6 competitive. Today, we go over a brief history about these hazards and think, what if we added more? So to start things off, what is an entry hazard? An entry hazard is of course an element of the game that basically sets up a trap on the opposing side of the field. Right now we have technically 5 entry hazards if you want to get technical with it. But I'm going to go over quickly what these entry hazards are. First of all, an entry hazard is of course something that can damage or inflict some type of status or stat drop on an opponent. These are very limited as there are technically 4 that can be used as of Generation 9. 5 if you want to count something special in Generation 8. First of all, we have spikes that was introduced in Generation 2. Later on, it got updated where it can be used up to 3 times. The amount of damage done is a set damage not based on type for spikes. That is based on how many layers there is. The more layers you have, the more damage you can cause, up to 3 layers. Spikes does not get affected though, while flying types and levitators do not get affected by spikes. Next, introduced in Generation 4, probably the most prominent one, Stealth Rock, which is a rock type move that is an entry hazard that does damage based on the type of the Pokemon. You can only lie 1 Stealth Rock on the field at a time, on the opponent's side that is. And like I said, it can do more damage or less damage based on type. It can be 4 times resisted, doing about 3%. Or it can be 4 times weak to rock, and lose 50% of their health among entry. This is one of the most popular ones because there's no type immunity like with spikes. But there are still ability immunities. Next up is of course Toxic Spikes, which is the first of the non-damaging ones. This one you can lay up to 2 hazards, and if it's 1 hazard, it will poison any Pokemon coming in on the field except for poison and steel types, and of course Magic Guard users. And if you have 2 layers up, it will badly poison the opponent, giving it a toxic status condition. Again, it does not affect steel types, and if a poison type does switch in, it actually will eliminate Toxic Spikes. And the 4th one, as of Generation 6, is Sticky Web, a bug type move that doesn't do damage, and it doesn't do status conditions either. When a Pokemon enters the field with Sticky Web up, it drops the opponent's speed by 1. This is a great move for speed control, and it's just like Spikes and Toxic Spikes, whereas Flying types and Levitate users do not get affected by it. And now for a special case, Sharp Steel. We'll go more into this here in a bit, you'll see why. But this does not have a move all to its own. It's a side effect of Gmax Copperage's Gmax move called Gmax Steel Surge, which after doing damage, sets up Steel Shrapnel on the opponent's side of the field. Very akin to Stealth Rock, where this move actually does damage based on type. There is no type immunity for it, but it does resist steel, or steel resists it. Ice is weak to it, fight is neutral to it, so the damage is just like Stealth Rock, where it is dependent on type, and there is no type immunity. And now to go into what I mentioned at the start of the video, what if we added more? Here I actually have 4 new options for what we could see in the future for Stealth Rock. Well, not Stealth Rock, I mean entry hazards. My bad. This is not scripted, by the way. The intro was scripted, but this part is not. But we already have 4, technically 5, Stealth Rock, but not Stealth Rock. Stealth Rock is the most prominent one, if you haven't guessed by now. After all, False Swipe Gaming has a whole video about Stealth Rock. Besides the fact that it's a good move. But here though, we're going to discuss 4 more entry hazards that we could possibly see. After all, if you've noticed a bit of a pattern, Spikes was introduced in Generation 2, Stealth Rock and Toxic Spikes was Gen 4, Sticky Web was Gen 6, and then Sharp Steel, which was the one for Copperage's Gmax form, was Gen 8. We're currently in Gen 9, didn't get nothing new in terms of it, but with Gen 10 coming, we could see a new entry hazard. Now, will we see more than one? Probably not, but it would be cool to get more variety. First up here though, we got Stealth Steel. This is probably the most obvious one, just coming off of what we talked about with Gmax Copperajah. This is Sharp Steel, the Steel Shrapnel hazard in move form. This will only lay up to one layer, and it basically will act just like Stealth Rock. I think it's a shame that we never got this move as an actual one. I don't know if you would, as an actual move, I don't know if you would be allowed to put both rock and steel hazards on the side of the field. Maybe you would only be able to do a limit of one of either or the other. If you have Stealth Rock up, you cannot do Stealth Steel. If you have Stealth Steel up, you cannot use Stealth Rock. That could be a way to make it maybe balance out, because after all, you could have like a Volcarona come in on Rock, Steel, and Spikes, and it would lose 50% of its health. Then it would lose Resisted. Well, it would lose Resisted, which would be what? 1/16. So it would be down to like 7/16. And then after 3 layers of spikes, if that is up to, you lose another 20%. You're down to about, what, 3/16 of your health? And that's not even talking about Frostmoth. If you had up rocks and steel shrapnel and 3 layers of spikes, guess what? You're 4 times weak to rock. You're 2 times weak to steel. 3 spikes at 25%. That's 100%. Frostmoth dies on entry to rocks, steel, and spikes times 3. You take 5 turns to set that up. That Frostmoth, unless it has heavy duty boots, is gone. But I do think that the fact that they introduced this as a added effect and not a move, though, is a missed opportunity. Next up here is actually one that I created a while back, and basically the reason for making this video. I really like this one idea, actually. It's called Static Spikes. It's an electric type entry hazard move that lays a trap of electrically charged spikes. Can lay up to 2 layers, similar to Toxic Spikes. But the layers have more differences than just one status condition versus a stronger version of that status condition. If there is one layer up, all it does is it will paralyze Pokemon switching in. With Sticky Web being speed control and Toxic Spikes already given a status condition, I don't see a problem in this being a thing, just because they already nerfed paralysis to where electric types cannot be paralyzed, and instead of quartering the speed, it's halving the speed. So that's actually really, they already nerfed paralysis. Let's make it into an entry hazard. And the same way with Toxic Spikes, electric Pokemon will have an advantage when switching in on it. If an electric type does switch in on Static Spikes, it will A, clear the hazard by absorbing it, and it will get a +1 boost. Now you see on the screen it says Special Attack. Well, I want to actually change that. I should have done it beforehand, because this is actually my second time trying to make the video. But I want to change that to a +1 boost to its higher offensive stat. So if it's like an Electivire, it'll get a +1 boost to its physical attack. If it's an Alolan Raichu, it'll get a +1 boost to its special attack. I just think that would be really good, because it's kind of like it's absorbing the electricity. It's going to get stronger, kind of like how a Volt Absorb is, except that's for HP. But if there's 2 layers, though, here's the big difference. If there's 2 layers of Static Spikes up, it doesn't paralyze, it'll do straight damage, the same way Spikes and Stealth Rock does. This does count type into the effectiveness, though. It's like Rock and Steel. It'll take damage into account. The funny thing is, though, this is Static Spikes. So flying types are actually immune to this, because they're not touching the ground. The same thing with Levitators. So Gyarados is not 4 times weak to Static Spikes. It's actually immune to it. Unless, of course, Gravity is in play. But who's going to waste one of the 24 slots on Gravity? But if it does, though, if you're... The only thing that really be taking 25% then would be Water types. And obviously, a Water Ground type would be immune to it. A Water Electric type would get a boost. So it's stuff like that. But if it is 2 layers, though, that an electric type switches in on, the hazard is again cleared, and they will get a +2 boost. 2 layers, +2 boost to whichever offensive stat is highest. Obviously, the way I play competitive, if I have Toxic Spikes on my team, and I see my opponent has a Poison type, the fact that Toxic Spikes is the easiest to get rid of, that you don't have to use a move for, I think makes it one of the weaker ones to try and put into play. So if your opponent has an electric type, you might not want to use your static spikes until that electric type is gone. But if they do have an electric type and you think it's necessary, I mean, set it up. They can probably use it against you, though. Next up here is number 3, Seed Snare. This one's actually kind of taking inspiration from the partner Eevee from Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, where I think it has a move called Sappy Seed. This is, of course, a grass-type entry hazard that will lay a trap of entangled vines to sap opponent's energy. You can only lay one layer, and the effect basically is a Pokemon switching in will become affected by Leech Seed. It becomes Leech Seeded, pretty much. There is no boost to this when the Pokemon switches in. You can get rid of it through Rapid Spin, the same way Leech Seed can be gotten rid of, so I really like that bit of connection there. Which, of course, if you guys don't know yet, you can get rid of entry hazards by Rapid Spin, Defog, Mortal Spin, or Poison types with Toxic Spikes. And, of course, if you have heavy-duty boots, you won't get affected by it. That would apply to all of these. All of these can be Rapid Spun, all of these can be Defogged, and any additional effects that is said, though, in stone here are what would also apply. The thing that I did add, though, is the same way how Leech Seed doesn't affect grass types will not be affected by the Seed Snare. Also, fire types and poison types. Not everything that is resistant to grass is here on this list. I kind of wanted to make it more sensical than just everything that resists grass, like dragon and whatnot. But grass types are already immune to Leech Seed, so that was a given. Fire types, I think the fact that they burn, they're hot, they could be on fire, their bodies are hot, that the seeds would just, burn right off them. And poison types, they're poisonous. I mean, I'm trying to think of the best way that they describe it. It's kind of like a liquid ooze. You won't be hurt by it if you were trying to leech the poison type. But I think poison types, though, they would ruin the plant. It'd be like a pesticide. They would ruin the plant. It wouldn't affect them. And I think this would be a really fun one because it would be like they would lose 1/8 of their 1/8. Maybe with it being a different one, maybe 1/16, maybe 1/10. I don't know what the damage should be. But I definitely think that this would be a unique one because anytime they switch in, you're kind of getting... Maybe it would be 1/16 then. Maybe it would be 1/16 instead of 1/8. I think they could be too broken. If they just lose 1/8 of their health every time, they'd be having to switch around a lot. But yeah, so when they are Leech Seeded, they would lose 1/16 of their health every turn. Kind of like how Sandstorm damages now. And last but not least, the final one that I came up with, probably could use a better name, Aqua Hazard. This is a water type entry hazard move that lays a watery hazard on the opponent's field. My inspiration, if you would, think about it like this, golf courses, the way they have, I wanted to create like a move called like Bunker or something, how this Baneful Bunker, but have like Sandy Bunker for like an entry hazard, but that's a ground type move like Spikes. I want to have different types of entry hazard moves. So this is Aqua Hazard though. Think of it kind of like the golf course. It would create a watery hazard that would trap. Now this is actually a cool effect. I like adding new effects and stuff that make things more interesting. So this hazard will prevent all Pokemon except the water type and the ice type from switching out for 2 turns. So whenever you switch in a Pokemon that's not a water type, the next turn and the following turn, they cannot switch out. It traps them. For an ice type though, it will actually freeze the hazard and eliminate the trap upon switching. The same way poison for toxic spikes. So an ice type is how you would get rid of the Aqua Hazard. Now, while the hazard is also up, electric type attacks will do double the damage. Kind of a reference to how the anime is. It doesn't add the water type, but it's just when they're stuck in that water hazard, a Thunderbolt will do double the damage. And of course, this ain't like terrain. This is an entry hazard. You have to get rid of this through rapid spin, which would blow away all the water, or for this case, defog, or well, for this case, ice types, but you can also use defog. So I just think that'd be really fun. Switching is a big mechanic, so this is almost kind of like an anti thing. Like, I know if you have an entry hazard up and you want to punish them for it, then that's what you would use rocks and spikes for. But here, it prevents them from switching out. So you basically can get a free turn to switch out yourself and still get one more free turn before they are able to switch again. So I just think that's a fun way to do it. It's almost kind of like a much weaker version of Arena Trap. So it shouldn't be banned. It would only be for 2 turns on every Pokemon. Keep in mind, it's not count. The turn doesn't count when you switch in. That turn doesn't count. The turn you can start selecting your moves with a new Pokemon, that's the first turn. So like the turn you switch out, you switch someone in, you take a hit. Next turn is turn 1, and then turn 2, and then turn 3 you can switch out again. So I think that's a lot of fun, honestly. And that's it for this pretty interesting, different type of video. I like doing these type of discussions. They're fun. It gets my ideas out there, and it can create discussions within the community. So let me know what you guys thought about my entry hazards. Let me know what type of entry hazards you would do, what the effect would be. If you would buff any of mine, or more than likely nerf any of mine. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you guys on whatever video I decide to do next. Bye-bye.